Hey guys, we're going to be continuing to look at adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. And we're going to be using two strategies today. We're going to be using area model, which is a review, but we're also going to be looking at number lines. And that's what we're going to start with, is a number line. So the addition expression that I have right now is 1/4 plus 1/2. And I'm trying to find the sum or the total of those two fractions. Well, if you look at my two number lines that I have, right here on this number line represents 1/4. And then right here on this number line represents 1/2. Okay, the problem is that we don't have a common denominator. Our denominators are not the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top number line, 1/4. So I'm taking this fraction, 1/4, and I'm going to use the other denominator, which is a 2. Now, let's talk about that. So what I'm going to do is between each of these two lines, I'm going to partition it into two smaller pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and I'm going to add a line right there. And now I have two smaller pieces. And I add a line right there, and I have two smaller pieces. Add a line right there, and I have two smaller pieces. And add a line right there, and I have two smaller pieces. Now, the reason I've done this is because this gives me an equivalent fraction to 1/4. So we now have a new denominator because when I look, there are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces in this number line. And this fraction, instead of being at 1/4, is now 1/8, 2/8. So that means that 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. All right, so now let's look at the other number line. So the other number line, which is 1/2, all right, we're going to use the opposite denominator, which is 4. So that means that I'm going to take each one of these sections right here and split them up into 4 equal pieces. So just like this, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to repeat that. And I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now, if we did this right, we should have a common denominator. So if we look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces. All right, perfect. So now we have that common denominator of 8. So if we look, we're then going to figure out what the fraction is that's equivalent to 1/2. Well, this is 1/8, this is 2/8, 3/8. So this would be 4/8. So that tells me that 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2. Now, all I have to do is take these two fractions that have a common denominator and add them together. So 2/8 plus 4/8 gives us 6/8. So we now know that 1/4 plus 1/2 is equal to 6/8. All right, so let's look at another one. So here we have 3/4 plus 2/5. Okay? Again, right now the problem is we don't have a common denominator. But when I look at my number lines, all right, 3/4 would be located right here. So again, this is where 3/4 would be. And then 2/5 would be located right here. So I'm going to go ahead and label it 2/5. Now, what we have to do is we're going to take the top number line, which represents 3/4, and we're going to use the opposite denominator, which is 5. And that means that we're going to break each one of these sections up into 5 smaller pieces. So if I do that, I'm going to bring this in, and you can see that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then I'm just going to repeat that until each section is broken up into 5 smaller pieces. Okay, perfect. Now, let's think about what our equivalent fraction is. So if we figure out how many pieces are in this number line now, how many pieces do you think are there? Exactly, 20. Because remember, there's 5 in each section, so that would be 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's where our denominator came from. All right, so what about our numerator, though? What about our numerator? All right, our numerator is going to be 15. And I know this because if this is 0, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that gives me 15 20ths. Now, if we go down to our second number line, which is 2/5, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to partition each one of these sections into how many pieces? Exactly, into 4 pieces. Because we're taking 2/5 and we're going to use the opposite denominator, which is 4. So that means that I'm going to bring my red lines over, and you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Okay, so we're going to do that for the entire number line. Just like this. All right. And then if we look, we should have a common denominator. And when I look at this, all right, I have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. That's my denominator. And it's the same as the other number line now. So a common denominator. Then I'm going to look at the equivalent fraction for the numerator. So again, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that gives me 8 20ths. So now I have 15 20ths plus 8 20ths. Since we have that common denominator that we're looking for, we bring that down and we do 15 plus 8, which is going to give us 23. So 3/4 plus 2/5 is equivalent to 23 20ths, or 1 3 20ths. All right, so here we have 1/3 plus 1/6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1/3, which is right there, and 1/6, which is right here. Now, what I need you to do is on a piece of paper, I need you to try to solve this on your own, drawing 2 number lines representing 1/3, 1/6. Pause the video and see if you can solve this on your own. All right. So what we're going to do, now that you have worked this problem out, we're going to take 1/3 and we're going to partition each one of these sections into pieces of 6. So I'm going to bring my red line over, just like that right there, and I'm going to repeat that for each section. just like that, and just like that. All right. And then I'm going to take my next number line where I have 1, 6, and I'm going to partition each one of these sections into, that's right, you guessed it, thirds. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to repeat this throughout the rest of the number line. Just like this right here. Okay, now, what is our common denominator? Meaning, how many pieces are both of these number lines broken up into? Exactly, 18. Okay, so remember, if you wanted to skip count, probably the bottom number line will work best because it's broken up into threes. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. All right, so now we need a numerator for each one. So if we look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that gives me 6/18. Then, if we look at the other one, the numerator is going to be 1, 2, 3. 3/18. Alright, so if we add these two together, 6/18 plus 3/18 will give us 9/18. So 1/3 plus 1/6 is equivalent to 9/18. Alright, so now let's review using area models that we talked about earlier this week. So we have the fraction 2/5 plus 1/10. Well, we can see that on this bottom row, we have 2/5. And then in this one, we have 1/10. All right. So remember that what we're going to do here is we are going to take the 1/10 and we are going to partition it based on the other denominator, which is 5. So that means that I'm going to draw a horizontal line going across, but I'm going to break this up into 5 pieces. And we want it to be as close as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So if we look, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is that other denominator. Okay, now we have 2/5. Okay, so with this one, what I'm going to do is take my 2/5 and I'm going to partition it into tenths. All right, so I'm going to take my lines and I'm going to add a line there, and I'm going to continue across until I have 10 columns. So continue across until I have 10 columns. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now what I need to do is figure out my denominator. So my denominator is going to be what? Exactly, it's going to be 50. Because remember, there are 10 pieces going all the way across. So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. All right, so that gives me my denominator of 50. But then to figure out my numerator, I'm going to figure out how many total yellow pieces I have. How many total yellow pieces do you see on the screen? All right, so we have 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So that gives me 25 fiftieths. So 2/5 plus 1/10 is equal to 25 fiftieths, or 1/2, because 25 is 1/2 of 50. So let's look at one more problem before you go. So we have 5/8 minus 1/6. All right, again, 5/8 represented right here, 1/6 represented right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking 5/8 and I'm going to partition it into 6 pieces. So I'm going to go across. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it to try to be close. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I need one more, which is going to go right there. All right. And then I'm going to take my other one, which is 1/6, and I'm going to partition it into 8s. So now I'm going to come and go down vertically until I have 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, perfect. So now, what is our common denominator? What is our common denominator? All right, so our common denominator here is going to be 48. All right, so we have 48. Now, if we look, what we're doing here, though, is we're not going to figure out the total number of blue pieces because we're being asked to subtract. So what I'm going to do is figure out how many blue pieces I have in the top rectangle. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be 12, 18, 24, 30. So I have 30 48s. And then in the other rectangle, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 48s. And again, we're being asked to subtract here. So that means we're going to do 30 48s minus 8 48s. Well, we know our denominator stays the same, so 48. And then 30 minus 8 is going to be 22. So 5/8 minus 1/6 would give me 22 48s.